The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Kalshi. Make real money predicting sports. Kalshi is available in every state, and you also get $20 for free when you sign up with the code SGPN. That's Kalshi, promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. Currently, Wednesday afternoon, January 28th, around 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm, as always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the women's semifinals in the Aussie Open. So we're going to break down the two matches taking place early Thursday morning. A reminder for the actual schedule, the men's semifinal matches are taking place on a Thursday night. So once again, there is a bit of a gap there between the women's semis and the men's semis. I'd say about 20 hours, give or take, in terms of a gap. But either way, we will be doing the men's episode tomorrow. So if you're looking for the men's episode, it's not going to come out after this one. It'll come out the day after. So keep that in mind. We'll be back again tomorrow for the men's semis. But once again, we are here to break down the women's. And now before getting to any of the actual breakdown of the two matches on the women's side, a reminder that you can support the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. Podcasts also can be found on Spotify or Apple. So a couple ways to support the show: like, subscribe on YouTube, leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple to help the show grow. Plus, a reminder, check out the app in the App Store. SGPN does have one easy location to find all the podcasts on the network and, most importantly, all of the free picks. So check out the SGPN app, free to download in the App Store. Once again, find access to all of our picks and podcasts in one convenient location. Plus, a reminder, check out the app and check out the merch store, because we do have a lot of great merchandise. We have a lot of options for tennis. We have a sweatshirt, we have t-shirts, we have mugs. I believe we have hats now as well. So once again, check out the merch store. Think you'll like the options that we have for the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Now moving on to the recap. Now, we're going to have to recap the men's quarterfinals. However, I don't want to go too deep into it because I was going to save, of course, my takeaways from the quarterfinals for the men's semis episode. So instead, we're going to briefly mention the lock and dog, then we'll segue into the recap of the women's quarterfinal matches. So starting off with the lock, a pretty brutal push as we ended up having Musetti plus 5.5 games at minus 138. He was up 2-0 against Djokovic, and then he got injured in the third set. And it happened very quickly. He injured his groin and then played about 2 more games after that and quit. So he had a Dimitrov scenario in Wimbledon in the Aussie Open this year, and Musetti had to retire while up 2-0. So plus 5.5 was, in my opinion, a very good read because he was up 2-0. And it didn't matter anyway, as Joker did advance via retirement, but of course for the spread that ends up voiding, so picked up a void for the lock. For the dog, had a loss. We had Alcaraz to win and de Minaur to also win a set, and that did not happen as we saw Alcaraz bury de Minaur in the final 2 sets. First set was close. It was a 7-5, but either way, Alcaraz hit the ground running. After getting off to a bit of a cold start, he was on fire, and de Minaur had no answers. So once again, unfortunate, we did not pick up a win with the lock because of an injury, but it is what it is, and we'll try to get back on track here for the women's Aussie Open. Now, for the actual matches that happened in the quarters, we have seen a very anticlimactic women's event so far. You could argue that it's more anticlimactic than the men's because the men's had the top 4 seeded players advance into the semis with no upsets at all, which is expected. As for the women's side, though, we have seen a pretty similar story. We have a bunch of people who have really not been competitive, and as a result, we ended up getting a bunch of straightforward matches in the quarters. Sabalenka beat Jovic in straight sets. Svitolina killed Goff in straight sets. Rybakina beats Swiatek in straight sets, and Pegula beat Anisimova in straight sets. So really no drama at all in the entire quarterfinals. I know that the Anisimova-Pegula set had an interesting conclusion. Pegula served for the match. She choked. Anisimova was actually serving for the set to force a decider, didn't convert, and then eventually Pegula ran away with the tie break. But either way, the story here is pretty simple. Sabalenka, Svitolina, Rybakina, and Pegula, the 4 semifinalists, each have not dropped a set in the entire tournament. I'm not sure this ever happened before, but the 4 people remaining in the Aussie Open on the women's side, each have not dropped a set yet, which is kind of insane. But either way, that is where we're at right now. A lot of straightforward matches, really no drama at all. and we'll see what happens. But either way, point is definitely not a fun event so far. At least looking at the straightforward 2-0s we've seen across the board on the women's side. It has been a really awful tournament, and it's a shame because the Aussie Open's my favorite Grand Slam. This has been the worst iteration that we've seen in a long time, and we'll see if it picks up in the semis or the final, who knows. But it has been a really bad tournament so far all around. And either way, we'll see what happens, but it's been pretty anticlimactic, and we'll see if it picks up moving forward. Now, for the actual recap, though, of the quarter picks, once again, the outrights have really not been the picks for the matches have not been very good for the lock and dog. However, we completely cooked on the outright, so you probably made some money betting on the outright. So for the women's Aussie Open, we'll save the men's for the next episode. First quarter, we had Sabalenka, minus 175. Yes, we had Mboko as well, which didn't get there, but we had Sabalenka at minus 175. Second quarter was our biggest long shot winner. We had Goff at 180, that lost. We had Andreeva plus 275, and we had the person who beat both of them in the quarter. We had Svitolina at 13-1, so nice cash there at 13-1. Shout out to Svitolina. We found a rogue number on Bet Rivers. We capitalized on it, and Svitolina got there at 13-1, so great long shot price there. Third quarter did not work out. We ended up going for Keys, and we also ended up going for Noskova at 5-1 and 10-1 respectively, and that didn't work out, as of course we ended up seeing Pegula make it out of the third quarter. And last but not least, for the fourth quarter, we did end up winning with Rybakina at 2-1. So Swiatek was at 150. We had Bencic at 8-1 as a last-minute addition. Either way, Rybakina got there at plus 200. So once again, we got 3 of the 4 quarters right. We got Sabalenka at 175. We ended up getting Rybakina at 2-1. And most importantly, we got Svitolina at 13-1 as our main cash there for the quarter plays. And for the outrights for the women's side, we do have 2 out of our 3 outrights remaining. So Andreeva ended up losing at 16-1, but we have Sabalenka at 2-1, and we found a rogue number on Rybakina at 13-1 as well. So 13-1 is a great price, but once again, we have 2 of the 4 people remaining. Sabalenka, who's now a minus price to win the event, and Rybakina at 13-1, who's favored to beat Pegula in the semis. So we might get an automatic winner, actually. If Sabalenka and Rybakina both win their matches on Thursday morning, we have a guaranteed outright winner. But overall, once again, the picks have not been great, but the outrights were phenomenal so far in the women's event, and the men's too. We'll save that for next episode. So can't complain. Once again, very solid for us, and hopefully it carries over into the remaining matches in the event. But if you ended up back in the outrights, you're in a great spot. You've already made some money. Svitolina, you probably got a worse price on, but that was still mostly 7-1 in most spots, give or take. So still a good outright number. And once again, Sabalenka or Rybakina are still alive to win the entire thing, which is very good for us. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual breakdown of the recap of the quarters for the women's side. Time to move on into the preview of the semifinal matches. Before we get into the preview of the semis, a reminder that we're brought to you by our sponsor, Avo. So if you want to make more money betting on sports, use Avo. It's AVO, the best sports betting tool. Helps you make a profit every time you decide to place bets. They do it with arbitrage and plus EV opportunities for you. So once again, if you don't know what that means, that's fine. Check out the video step-by-step guides they have. They give you tutorials to teach you how to do arbitrage and how to add it to your betting arsenal. But a reminder that if you are trying out Avo, go to avo.bet, use the code SGPN for $18 off your purchase. It's avo.bet, code SGPN for $18 off your purchase. We're also brought to you by Kalshi. So it's a real money prediction market available in every state. So you can trade a ton of markets in sports: the NFL, college football, tennis, college basketball, the NBA, NHL, and more. Plus trade props like first touchdown. So if you want to go with the Super Bowl and you want to go for example, Kenneth Walker, first touchdown, you can do it on, once again, Kalshi. So check it out. And a reminder that if you are new to the platform, they have other options besides sports. They have politics, entertainment, and even the weather. And new customers get a great deal courtesy of us. Get $20 when you sign up for your new account with the code SGPN. That's Kalshi, Kalshi, code SGPN for a free $20 at sign up at Kalshi. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the quarters. Time to move on into the preview of the semis. So, going in order, for the first match on the card, we have Sabalenka taking on Svitolina. So, a bit of a geographical war there between the Belarusian and the Ukrainian. But either way, we'll see how the match plays out. Now, for the money line here, Sabalenka is minus 400. Svitolina is plus 310. For the spread, minus 4.5 for Sabalenka, plus 4.5 for Svitolina, and the over-under is at 20.5. For the set spread, Sabalenka straight sets is around minus 130. Svitolina to win a set is around plus 107. For the over 2.5 sets, I see plus 170. And for the other stuff here, team total, I see 9.5 for Svitolina. And for, once again, Sabalenka, it is 12.5, basically minus 110 on both sides. So for the match in itself, for the head-to-head history, Sabalenka has been quite good in the head-to-head. She is currently 5-1. Now, to get into the last couple of meetings, pretty straightforward. Face-off one time last year on clay. Sabalenka did win in straight sets in Madrid. Cincinnati 2 years ago, Sabalenka did win in straight sets. Face-off in Rome, 2024, Sabalenka did win in 3 on clay. In the French Open, 2023, Sabalenka did win in straight sets. Strasbourg, on clay in 2020, Svitolina did win in 3, and Wuhan 2018, Sabalenka did win in 3 sets. So initially, a couple of close meetings, as 3 of the first 4 meetings did not end in straight sets. However, we have seen Sabalenka emerge, of course, as the number 1 player in the world, and since then, she's dominated Svitolina, as she has won the last 2 in straight sets, and most importantly, she has won 4 in a row in 5 of these 6 career meetings. Now, for the path so far, Sabalenka has not dropped a set yet, and she's been pretty, I'd say, comfortable. She had a couple of close sets, which she probably should have closed pretty, I'd say, a lot more easily, as against Potapova, for example, against Dumboko. She was up by a decent amount and ended up punting a decent amount of the lead, but was able to hold on and win in straight sets. But either way, beat Jovic, beat Dumboko, beat Potapova, and beat Bai, and also beat a complete unknown in the first round in straight sets. So we saw her win in Brisbane. She was in great form. They carried over into the Aussie Open. A reminder, she has reached the final in the Aussie Open in 3 straight iterations, trying to make it 4 straight. So we know she's been here before, and she's very comfortable on the courts here in Melbourne. Now, as for Svitolina, like Sabalenka, she has not dropped a set yet, but unlike Sabalenka, a very, very difficult path. So she ended up winning the title in Auckland. So like Sabalenka, she was in great form entering the event. That's why we took her to win the quarter. Now, she beat Buksa in the first round. I ended up beating Klimovikova in the second round. Beat Schneider, beat Andreeva, and beat Goff. So mainly the last 3 matches. I know Schneider wasn't exactly in great form, but either way, still a ranked player. Nice straight set win there. Beating Andreeva and Goff convincingly is very impressive. Andreeva only won 6 games, and Goff said, I can do a lot worse than that. And Goff only won 3 games in the entire match. So Sabalenka dropped 9 combined, Svitolina dropped 9 combined games to two top 10 players, and Andreeva and Goff. And Goff, for the serving numbers, was absolutely horrendous. She only won 15 of her 43 points on serve. So Goff was a mess. Everyone saw her spike her racket at the end in the backstage, and that was a whole separate point. But for the record, by the way, I didn't care that she smashed her racket. It makes no difference to me. But the point is, Goff played like garbage. Svitolina capitalized on it, and the return game was very solid for Svitolina. Now, I do think it's worth noting that even though Goff and Andreeva are top 10 players, significantly different styles of play compared to Sabalenka. We do know that Goff and Andreeva like to rally a lot. I know Andreeva's worked on the firepower a bit recently, but the point is we know that Sabalenka has more firepower than anybody else on the entire tour. So yes, Svitolina was comfortable. At the same point, though, Goff is basically a pusher. Andreeva's kind of the same way. Sabalenka should win a lot more free points on her serve by comparison to Andreeva and Goff, which could result in a different wrinkle in this match. Now, I do think Svitolina might make at least 1 set close, but I think at the end of the day, I will go with Sabalenka to win this one. You're looking at Svitolina, who, despite being a veteran on tour, has never made a Grand Slam final. She's lost a couple of times in the semis. I believe she's 0-3 in the Grand Slam semis portion of her career, which means that even though she's a veteran, I'm sure with Monfils sitting in her coach's box, She is in the middle of what could be the biggest match of her entire career. So nerves can play a factor, despite the veteran experience and the fact that Sabalenka been there, done that. This is the 4th straight time she's made it to the Aussie Open semis. She's won multiple titles here before, lost in the final last year. So I do think there's a chip on her shoulder to get the job done once again after losing to Keys in the final last year. But Sabalenka, I think, is too good. I think there's a reason why Svitolina historically has struggled against Sabalenka and why she is currently 1-5 lifetime. I just think it's about the firepower. Sabalenka can really make you uncomfortable by forcing you to, I'd say, hit shots either without preparation or without proper footwork. And I do think, unlike Goff and Andreeva, I think that Svitolina will feel hurried over the course of this matchup. I think Sabalenka will showcase the firepower, showcase the serve, and Svitolina, we know, is not exactly a great server. I think Sabalenka wins. I just think at the end of the day, it's going to be a pretty entertaining match, but I don't see Svitolina winning. Give me Sabalenka to get the job done in this one. I'll save my favorite play from this matchup in the lock and dog segment. Moving on to the other match for the episode, we have Pegula taking on Rybakina. For this one, decent money line, but a lot cheaper than Sabalenka. Rybakina is minus 215. Pegula is plus 175 for the spread, minus 3.5 for Rybakina at even money. Pegula is plus 3.5 at minus 124. For the over/under, I see 22.5. Now for straight sets, I see Rybakina at around plus 125. I see Pegula to win a set at around minus 160. For the over 2.5 sets, I see plus 132. Team total, I see Pegula at 11.5, a little bit of juice there to the over. And for Rybakina, I see it at 12.5. The under is minus 104, and the over is minus 124. For the head-to-head, it's been more competitive than what we've seen between Sabalenka and Svitolina, because we have seen Pegula have some success. It is currently in the head-to-head. Just pulling it up right now. I believe it is 3-3 or 4-3 in favor of... so it is 3-3. So they're tied. I want to point out, though, that Pegula did have success early in the head-to-head, and since then, Rybakina has kind of flipped it. Pegula won the first 2 meetings in Miami and in Guadalajara, so both meetings in 2022. However, since then, faced off a couple of times, and we've seen Rybakina win 3 of the last 4. I'll point out, though, they faced off in the WTA finals last year, and Rybakina, despite winning the whole title, did drop a set to Pegula, so Pegula made the match close. That was the semis of that event. Rybakina eventually, of course, won, but the point is Pegula did make it a bit of a struggle for her early, and then Rybakina settled in as she won in 3 sets. Now, for the path so far, once again, a reminder, both players here have not dropped a set. So Pegula ended up beating Zakharova in the first round, beat Kessler, beat Selek-Meteva in the next round, then beat Keys, defending champion, and beat Anisimova, so by making a mess of the later stages of the second set. For Rybakina, beats Swiatek, beat Mertens, beat Valentova, beat Gracheva, and beat Juvan in the first round. So both players look great. Rybakina really just caught fire at the end of that match against Swiatek. Match was close, and then it wasn't, as you saw Rybakina go from being tied 5-5 to being up 7-5, 6-1. So it was a bloodbath down the stretch. Rybakina looked amazing. Swiatek had no answers. Yes, I know Swiatek isn't exactly the best player in the Aussie Open in her career, but still, I didn't think she played that badly. Rybakina just hit every spot she needed to. She was aggressive. She bullied the Swiatek serve. And I do think you're looking at a spot where Rybakina, once again, if she continues playing at this level, I think she's too good for Pegula. Now, Pegula's played well. I recognize the variety, the shot selection. I get all that. She's been playing very good tennis. However, I think Rybakina right now and Sabalenka are easily the 2 best players in the field. No offense to Pegula and to Svitolina, who, of course, have also not dropped any sets yet. But I do think Pegula should, similarly to what I said about the Svitolina match, I just think she's outmatched here. I do think, though, it's a good prep match with Anisimova, because at least she has the firepower, and that could be good preparation for her to face off against, once again, Rybakina. However, Anisimova was kind of all over the place, and we saw her have a mental breakdown at the end of the match towards her coach's box. I just think that Rybakina does a better job at showcasing controlled aggression, And I just think at the end of the day, it's going to be a matchup where Pegula has to be defensive. She has to try to force some errors. And based on the current, I'd say, form that Rybakina is in, I just don't see that happening. Now, for the actual stats here, just to pull it up, I understand Pegula played well, and I understand that it takes two to tango. At the same point, Anisimova, just for reference, had 18 winners and 44 unforced errors against Pegula. So, yes, once again, Pegula's defense forced some errors. I understand that. But when your ratio from winners to unforced errors is north of 1 to 2, that is not a good sign. Once again, when you have more than double the unforced error count compared to winners, I thought Anisimova was just horrible. And even with that being said, she still served for the second set, and we saw Pegula get broken while serving for the match before winning eventually in the tiebreak. I thought Pegula was fine, but it felt like Anisimova just lost complete control over her strokes, and that resulted in was basically a pretty simple game plan for Pegula. Keep it in play good defense, force the opponent to hit the extra shot, and capitalize on the free points that she'd be handing out. Anisimova handed out 44 free points with unforced errors. I don't see that happening in this one. Yes, Pegula got the job done, but I do think that Rybakina, once again, is too solid. I think she will win. Maybe you get a close set in there, but I do think that Rybakina is right now playing great tennis, and I think she's going to end up doing enough damage on both wings to force Pegula into being ultra defensive, which is, in my opinion, not going to work. So I'll go with Rybakina in this one. I think it'll be somewhat close early, kind of like the Swiatek match. Give me a close first set, followed by Rybakina just hitting full gear and winning comfortably. I'll go with her to win in straight sets. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview of the two semifinal matches in the Women's Aussie Open. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. So play pick'em entries, chance to win 5,000 times your entry. They're bringing the playoff magic all playoffs along, every playoff weekend. Open the app, see what promos are waiting for you. And if you are new to the platform, great sign-up deal for you. Play just $5, can send you $5 bonus funds when you sign up the promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. They've been great this NFL playoffs, especially if you've been looking at their props. And a reminder, check them out for other sports as well. They have golf. They have college basketball. A lot of options for you with models as well. So if you want to check out models in sports betting, a couple ways to do it courtesy of Rhythm. Build your own from scratch. They have a leaderboard system, so you can copy one from there, or just use the Rhythm model. They have a house model, which just gives you plays directly, very simple to use. And a reminder that if you want to check out Rhythm in a premium setting, you can get the premium version by using the code SGPN25. We download the app, and you'll get a quote off your first month. That's Rhythm, RATHMM, code SGPN25 for 25% off your first month at Rhythm. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the two semifinal matches taking place on Thursday morning. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go with more chalk. Give me Sabalenka straight sets at minus 125. Sabalenka is 5-1 lifetime against Svitolina outright. And a reminder that 3 of the last 4 wins have been in straight sets. Sabalenka, though, has been here before. She's made the Aussie Open final in 3 straight seasons. And, of course, she has won multiple titles here in the Aussie Open. Svitolina has been a solid veteran player for a while, but she has never made a Grand Slam final. She is 0-3 in her career in Grand Slam semis, so I do question if nerves will play a factor as the match progresses, and I do think Sabalenka, with the firepower, with the comfort on the courts, should find ways to take timing away from Svitolina, and I do think the Svitolina serve, by comparison to Sabalenka's, will be extremely vulnerable over the course of this match. Give me Sabalenka in straight sets once again to get the job done at minus 125 is my lock for the show. For the dog, same idea, different match. Give me Rybakina straight sets at plus 128 against Pegula. Rybakina, like Sabalenka, has been quite good lately in the head-to-head as she's 3-1 in the last 4 meetings. Now, Rybakina has been great at returning serve so far in the event. Pegula's been fine, but Rybakina's break point conversion rate is remarkable up to this point. Rybakina is converting 62.5% of her breakpoint chances. Now, Pegula's at 50%, which is still pretty good. But Rybakina, we know, has a better serve than Pegula, And I do think that if Rybakina gets a decent amount of breakpoint chances, she's proven time and time again that she's converting at an absurd rate. So I do think Pegula's serve will be under attack for most of the match. I think Rybakina will settle in, and I do think that Pegula is going to try to stick with the game plan she used against Anisimova, which is play defense, wait for errors, and win some free points. I just don't see that happening again. Anisimova, I thought, was horrific over the course of that match. Pegula played well defensively, but at the same point, you really didn't have to do anything because Anisimova had 18 winners and 44 unforced errors. So give me a better, I'd say more controlled aggression from Rybakina by comparison. I think she'll take control of the rallies. I think she'll win, and I think she'll end up winning comfortably. Give me Rybakina in straight sets as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog picks, the lock's going to be on Sabalenka. Straight sets against Svitolina at minus 125. For the dog, I'm going to go with Rybakina. Straight sets against Pegula at plus 128. It's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again tomorrow to get into the men's semifinal matches. So check that out when it comes out. Till next time, find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Don't forget to support the show. Like, subscribe on YouTube, and leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple at the SGPN Tennis Gambling Podcast. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye.